joyful Chuck Norris and knows how different that is from excitement as it is from anger with Chuck Norris. Here's my favorite, though. This is totally worth it. Someone's like, why are we watching the show? Because this is flirtatious, Chuck Norris.
Oh, man.
It's one of my favorite shirts. Anyway, that's what's going on in Chris's world. So
I love it. I'm glad that you're safe in California. What were you going to say? But
I know we have some fun things to cover. Like, I don't know, copying awesomes and some other good stuff tonight. So.
Yeah, super excited. I just want to do a quick shameless plug like we do every single week with our new event that's coming up. Guys, Digipalooza Part 2 is in the house. And if you get your tickets between now and August 5th, guess what? We're throwing in the hottest, the latest, the greatest Instagram training absolutely free. It was done by Zach Benson, who has a network of over 150 million people. We have an integrated marketing solution now that you guys get that if you get your ticket for Digipalooza before August 5th, and then it goes away until it goes live in the system when we launch that. So super excited for that, guys. If you want that extra IG training, let's go right now. I want to ask Daxie, because we're having our live event coming up in October, and I think it's really important for people to hear different perspectives from people outside of our community about live events. Could you just share maybe real quick, like, what is your stance on live events? What's your takeaways? Like, is it a good thing, bad thing?
Also, Zach Benson's the man. I know him. We work with a few clients together. He's amazing. Yeah, dude. Lately, I haven't like live events. I like going to like smaller ones only because the stage I'm at right now, where my time's kind of precious. But when I first started, it was everything, dude. Because it's so much easier to build relationships in person. Funnel Hacking Live was the first one that kind of like blew my mind. The one in Orlando. Yeah. And that like really catapulted me in my social circle. So yeah.
Yeah, what would you say, like, just like the biggest aha awakening moment? Is it like the sidebar conversations? Is it when you're watching stuff on Stave, the masterminding? Like,
yeah, dude, it's LobbyCon, dude.
LobbyCon.
That's what I call it. Yeah, legit. Like, even the last Funnel Hacking Live, dude, I saw like one person speak every day because I was so like I was just chatting with people. Like those last way longer than the event. The knowledge you learn in events, like they're great. Like don't get me wrong, the smaller ones are better, but you can learn that anywhere. It's the people you meet which will stay with you. So
yeah, super powerful knowledge. He's already dropping liquid gold on you guys. I hope you're ready. We are now live in all kinds of different internet land places on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch, and now here live. This is gonna be recording. Sent out to all of our digital geniuses.
That's where I met Sean, by the way, in an event. Just so you guys know.
I was just gonna throw out there like, hey, how did you guys meet?
Yeah, we actually went to Offer Lab, and that's Steve Larson's event, and basically Steve Larson's like, well, I got this podcast thing, I don't really know what I'm doing, but Daxie does it all for me, and I was like, who is this guy? Like, that's amazing, and then that's how it started. So, yeah, really love that. It was really a pleasure to get to meet you. And, yeah, so don't forget, Digipalooza tickets, live event coming up October. You get the free Instagram training. Remember, guys, this is all inclusive. Actually, this is awesome. This is a great question for Daxie. We're already getting into it here. Our live event that we're putting on in October, here's what it is, right? All inclusive, meaning all you got to do is get to Salt Lake. The transportation's included. We're having a 5-star chef come in. It's going to prepare like super, super really good food. And we got a just awesome lineup of mastermind speakers, people from the community coming out. We're giving out like a media kit that's going to have actual tools where you can grow and build your business, like lights and all kinds of crazy, amazing things. And then also we're giving a media package away similar to what Steve did at his live event. Now, Daxie, I'm going to come to you after saying all that, plus free Instagram training from Zach Benson as a bonus. What would you say the package like that should cost?
Should cost? Sorry, there's probably way more in it than you told me too, right? There's more speakers and
there's a lot, man. Yeah, for sure.
How many days?
It's actually it's a 4-day.
It's 4 days?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would pay thousands for that easily.
Thousands, guys. All right, so the early bird price is $627. Look at his eyebrows. He goes like, what? Like, yeah, that's a pretty good deal. Smoking, right? Yeah. So
I paid like $800 recently, and it was a 2-day event in Orlando, and it wasn't even VIP. Like, it was just standard. So
still lodging and food and travel, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I had to pay for that too at a resort. So
that's crazy. Well, anyways, guys, if you want to grab your ticket now, do it now before August 5th so you can get the free IG training. It's digi-pa-luza.digitalgeniuslab.info. I think it's going to probably jump into the chat roll. Chris, if you could put that in, that'd be cool. And guys, we're going to move right into it today. We have special guest star Daxi Perez with us. I'm so excited. I met this guy from OfferLab, as I just kind of told you. The reason Daxi, I've been stalking this guy because we're actually on the path of growing our own podcast, as you guys have been seeing that every single week. And one of the things that I learned about him is he's not really, he got into podcasting because he wanted to be an electronic music producer, right?
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah.
That was one of the first skills I picked up, yeah.
Yeah, and so that has been kind of his fuel and his passion to go in the direction that he's going, and he takes every step that he takes is kind of like to realize that vision, and he wants to, apparently you want to be your own producer and have your own record label. Is that kind of the idea, the master plan?
Yeah, it's like in the 5-year timeline. Obviously, like during events and having a label requires capital to sign talent and stuff, so podcast is just the vehicle to get there quicker. So
yeah, for sure. And so a couple of quick stats for you guys. This dude is responsible for over 50 million downloads. Think about that for a second. That is a massive number. And he hosts all kinds of. He's got his own podcast, and he actually grows some of the other super influencers channels as well. You heard he works with Zach Benson. He works with a whole bunch of other people. And he's got like years of experience. But the coolest part about Daxi is his pre-life before getting into podcasting, where he was a digital nomad. Is that correct?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Like, when it all started when I dropped out of college, dude. Like, you're just like, shoot, I got to figure out something to do that isn't, because if you don't go to college, there literally is no jobs for you that are good, unless you're like really good at sales or something. So I just literally, it started with me just buying a lot of courses on Udemy. I don't know if you guys remember that site. Just $7, $9 courses, just trying stuff. And then I had my first success with e-commerce, like arbitrage and high-ticket drop shipping. And, when I was looking at all the people who were teaching me drop shipping, they all say, like, go to Thailand, go to Bali, and make money online. And it's actually cheaper, which is weird. I actually saved money from being a digital nomad. So yeah, that was early 2015, 16. And through that, like kind of what we said earlier, networking, I met someone who had a big agency in podcasting, and he was looking for like audio production work. And he was working on some big shows back then, like Tim Ferriss, Good Life Project. And I just helped him out, and I kind of grew the company. And then 2 years ago, I'm like, you guys could be doing so much more for clients. Because most people in the podcast agency world, all they do is the audio, and they'll put on a blog. Like, they won't, usually big podcasts, they hire certain people out for different tasks, like the social media and the emails and the chatbots, when all that can be done like with one team. So that's the opportunity we saw, and that's what we've been working on. So
yeah, so that's a little bit about what you've been up to lately, and I wanted to welcome you to the show. I'm super excited to have you here, and I wanted you to actually dive into maybe if you could start back in with your origin story. First of all, welcome, and like I said, walk us through your digital nomad lifestyle, and then like kind of what happened, and then now where you're going.
Yeah, so I mean, my vehicle to fund digital nomad was high ticket drop shipping, and it was actually the first course I bought the first credit card I ever pulled out was for like this $3,000 course, and it took me a while to have success in it, like 3 or 4 months. But yeah, and then I had a network of people that I was learning from in Facebook groups who all were in Thailand. They're like, you should come out. And that's what I did. So I was out there for like a year. But I ended up coming back because America's pretty awesome. Yeah, I didn't do much else as a digital nomad, to be honest. I just stayed in Chiang Mai and Bali. I didn't really travel too much. So yeah, that's pretty much my digital nomad experience. So
and then you came back to America, and then that's when you kind of fell into the podcasting side of things, yeah?
Well, it was before that. Like I was always freelancing on the side. Like always just like I was making like probably 5-10K from drop shipping, but I always wanted more.
Sure.
And I just took opportunities as they came. Like everything I did was because, I don't know if you guys know that quote from Jeff Bezos. He calls it the regret minimization factor. Like if you're going to regret not doing something when you're 80, then you have to do it. It's like everything I was doing, I'm like, I'm going to regret not doing this. I got to do it. And I fucked up a lot, but then I had some wins. So
yeah, that's awesome. All right, so our user base, the group of people that are listening right now are probably just getting into podcasting. So could you walk them through like What's the experience like? What are the expectations they should have around podcasting? Let's kind of dive in. Guys, as you have questions, drop them into the chat roll. We'll be asking Daxi those at the end here. But yeah, so you can just walk us through, like, what's the process? Where's the mindset? What should it be like?
Yeah, so podcast is a unique platform in that, well, first you have to understand, like, most businesses now, even like every industry, the ones that grow the fastest and have the biggest following are usually when there's a face behind the brand. And podcasting allows you to kind of like be that face behind your products and services, and to portray that. Plus, like, it's the best long performing content platform out there. Like, that's why Spotify, like, they invested like $500 million this year already, like, in some companies, because they have all the data. Like, they're even featuring podcasts more than their music now, which is pretty crazy. So, and also, I've probably told you this before, Sean, I feel like, or it is, podcasting is the best, like, top of the funnel content to make, because you can repurpose it in so many ways. Like, you can create so much, like, blog content from one podcast. You can create quote cards, you can create emails, you can do graphics, you can do video. Like, from one piece of content, you can create a lot, which in a busy entrepreneur's life, that's pretty valuable, you know, because we live in a content world.
So what would be the process of that? So it's like you record the episode somehow and you get it recorded into software or whatever, and then you chop it up and then you start pulling stuff from it, or like, what's the repurposing? How does that work?
Yeah, so skipped a few steps there as far as like what it takes to make a successful podcast, like the foundation. But like in general, yeah, it's just pretty much deciding if it's to be interview-based show or solo-based. Nowadays, if you want to position yourself, solo content performs way better, because interviews are great. There's highlights to it, but you're always highlighting someone else. And if your offers are based around your personal brand, you're not going to convert as much, to be honest. That's why John Lee Dumas only sells a podcasting course, because like no one knows him for anything else, to be honest. You know, like he's not selling anything. Yeah, it's just pretty much recording content and then setting up a system and process where you can, we call it a content machine, where you do things after you record. Like, and that depends on the platforms you're on. And the biggest thing is making good hooks for all these social media platforms and speaking, you know, differently on each one. So.
Yeah, that totally, absolutely makes sense, 110%, right? So I want to ask now, how does your family and your friends view what you're doing now?
I don't know, man. I've grown pretty fast over the past year, so I try to act like nothing's changed, because I hate having a big ego. Yeah, because it's weird that the people, like, the more higher up I see successful people, the more humble they are and like the hungrier they are. So I'm trying to kind of model that. Like, I don't act like I know it all or anything. So they see me the same. So yeah. Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, so
my friends, I don't really talk to them anymore. You kind of change your friend circle as you kind of level up. So I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah, no, I think that's just a good point. It's like hang with the people that you kind of want to be like, and the Jim Rohn saying and everything else like that. That's pretty cool. So, all right, so going into building a podcast for the first time, because that's what you're the expert at here, is like talk about what should somebody's mindset be like. I mean, like Will and Paige, they just started theirs. Will and Paige, maybe if you guys are struggling with something, like this is an awesome time to be like, Daxi, this is what I'm struggling with. But Daxi, I want you to start here and just share, like, when somebody's like, hey, I want to start a podcast, like, where should their head be? What's their expectations?
Yeah, so cool, guys. I'm curious to hear what it is. But the main thing you want to do is first figure out, like, is this a topic, a market that I see myself being in for the next 2+ years? Because podcasting is a long-term thing. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're not going to have overnight success. It's a discovery process. Like, it's like a lot of it you learn from it's the transformation that it creates in you, which is like the win, you know? And finding your voice and testing ideas, seeing what works, what doesn't work as far as content, and really like putting yourself in that market. So the first thing we start off usually, we call it a diamond. So the first thing in the diamond is you. So what is different about you? What is unique about you? What are your special skills, gifts that you can highlight to position you? Obviously, it still works out if people are starting out on their journey, but it won't be as important. And then after you figure out you, like what is your why? That's really important in you. Like getting really deep. Like we call it the 5 whys. Like asking yourself that too. And then when you get to the point where you're like save the world, just back up one step, and that's usually what your why is. because then everyone wants to save the world. Cool. Save the earth. So, and then what is your core purpose? So, like, who are you helping and what are you helping them achieve? So after we understand you, then we want to look at the market. Like, this is funny too. This has to do with any like thing you do. Most people don't do the competitor research in the beginning or like the market research because it's so boring. Like, you're gonna have to like search keywords in iTunes and make a list of 20 people, see what people are doing, what you like, what you don't like, what people are reacting to, look at their Instagram, see what's working. Like, the competitor research is a grinding process, but you'll learn a lot. You'll figure out like what you like and what you don't like, and it'll help you like grow in the process. So
can we run down that trail just for a little bit, because I think a lot of people skip over this part, especially when they're starting to build like anything from start to finish. The competitive research part of it. How did you figure that out? It was so important. What was your experience there?
Oh, dude, funnel hackers, man. Like, if you want to like model something, you buy, like, you go through the whole funnel. You buy everything. You figure out their messaging, what are their upsells, what are their emails, like, and you're like, you kind of just pretend like you're on the other side of it, and you go from there. So that's the same thing. Obviously, you're not pulling out your credit card to listen to podcasts. You're more, investing minutes to listen to stuff. But it's the same concept. You want to see what's already working, and because once you can understand, I'm sure you know a lot of this because Steve talks a lot about it. Like, when you understand like how a market's currently being served, then you know their current problems. That because whenever people are creating solutions, there's always follow-up problems, and you know how to address that through your content. And then that's how people like create this, like they start rising because they start talking differently to current. A lot of it's timing, like the best content, especially viral, is just all timing. So
yeah, I think that's really powerful. I'm going to come to you guys, Will and Paige. What are your questions? Where are you at with your podcast? How are things going? What can Daxi help you guys with?
Well, it's kind of nice to hear Daxi say, like, when you're starting out, trying to find your voice. And that's kind of very much where we're at right now. We're just kind of testing it. We're kind of just getting on the microphone and talking with each other and just trying to bring a real side of us to our audience. Because, essentially we're trying to get in all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and we're pushing our podcast out in these platforms. But, I mean, I guess essentially, what are some of the things you should be trying to do when you're first starting out to try and get your podcast out there more? And what kind of metrics should you look at to know that your podcast is going in the right direction?
Yeah, so metrics is all relevant to whatever your current reach is. Obviously, you want to, more than metrics, you want engagement, because I know people who have big metrics, but they don't make money, they don't have engagement, because they're just they just probably have first movers advantage. So, what was your first question? My memory got blank there. Before the metrics.
Kind of just how, like, as a brand new podcast, how do we kind of get it out there more, just so there's, because there's so many podcasts out there now. How do you stand out above the rest to try and be noticed? Yeah,
so a lot of that has to do with the research. Figure out where the people that you want to help, where do they exist, and how can you get in front of them. A lot of that has to do with, strategies that are kind of outside of podcasting. Like, most podcast growth is by word of mouth, like 60% plus, so people sharing. So you want to figure out what platforms can you get people sharing the most, and can you be exposed to the most people. I really love Facebook right now, like creating a profile funnel and that promoting yourself, and then engaging in Facebook groups, adding like 50 people a day, and then having them figure out who you are and join your call to actions. Instagram works very well. If you can get people tagging your account and sharing and reposting. So it really has to do with, we like to say, like, you want to have one main platform for people to discover you through the algorithm, and then you want to have one main where you can communicate with people that are currently following you. For some people, that might just be the podcast. Like, you just communicate with them through there or another place. So.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, because through the research we have done, we have noticed there's a lot of people have groups just for their podcast. They have kind of their page and then a separate group. So that's, it's just word of mouth, sharing your group and just getting that group in front of people.
Yeah, for sure. Facebook groups are awesome. Yeah, so that's a whole different strategy, growing a Facebook group too.
Yeah, we've been there before once.
So I think a lot of people are scared of podcasting and scared of diving in because they're like, oh, I gotta go buy all this stuff and I gotta like be super techie. Can you walk us through like, is it like that or what's the real scoop?
No, I mean, really, you only need like 3 pieces of equipment and software. It's just you have to be self-aware as far as what you're capable of doing. Like, don't say like, hey, I'm gonna go 5 episodes a week. We just launched. Like, you're gonna burn out. So figure out like how much like what is your just document your current process. Like, all right, we definitely want to post on Instagram. We definitely want to do an email. We definitely want to put it on YouTube. Document how much time that takes, and then figure out, do I hire someone or do we do it? And then figure out how much of that time you want to multiply a week, and then just do that. All right, so realistically, we can do 1 episode a week or 2 episode weeks because consistency is the game, not like and quality too. Quantity is great, but quality is way better. Like, you want to make stuff you're proud of, because then the engagement will be higher. So
Yeah, that's an awesome point there. And so if somebody's just getting started, and obviously you run your own agency and you help other people grow their podcast, and I think there's a lot of other things that you do. You've got courses and other things. But if somebody just wanted to kind of start on their own, what would you share with them? Like, hey, like use this software, do this thing. What direction would you
definitely download our ultimate guide to podcasting? And I'm not just saying as a plug. Like, it's literally 150 pages, and we want to make it paid, but it's just free right now. Whatever. So it's like a book, and that because a lot of stuff I could tell you, but it's super techy and it's like step by step, like the softwares we use, how to set it up, how to link things up, all the podcast hosts you want to be on, etc. A lot of that's in the guide. So, yeah, I don't know if there's anything specific.
No, that's awesome. What's the link to the guide? I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love to download that. If you just write it in the chat, that would be awesome.
Boom, got it.
Cool. There it is. Awesome, guys. If you want the free guide, hit that up. That is super awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's 150 pages.
Oh,
it's
shoot.
like legit. Like, you can launch a podcast and more with that. So yeah.
Is the one that Chris put in there, is that one gonna work? That link, or should we drop the one you sent just to me?
Oh, cool. You actually used my Bitly link. That's probably better.
Okay. Yeah.
Whatever. They're both. You get what you want. So
That's it. Okay. So
wait. Someone asked me about the diamond. Someone brought up the diamond.
yeah,
Hey,
talk about that.
Kristen, what's up? You know what's up. She's taking notes. So actually, there was 2 more pieces to the diamond. So it's you, the market. Diamond's 4-sided. It's not triangle, Kristen. It's you first, and then it's the market, and then you want to understand your avatar, like really detailed. Like, what are they currently doing? What is their current problems? What are their current desires? What are their current goals? Because a lot of that, your content's going to speak directly to that. Because you want your hooks and your episodes to be for people to say like, I want to know what that is, or I want to like get that. So you market your avatar and then your message. So like, what is your unique messaging? Like, how are you going to position your content and position like what is the old way and what is your new way of thinking? And a lot of that has to do with like the research I told you earlier. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so you've seen and worked with a ton of different entrepreneurs that all have their own podcasts. So here's my questions. What are the things that most people stumble on? What's the stuff you don't hear that, like the goody, the really juicy stuff?
Stumble on and we help them get over, kind of, you mean?
Yeah.
You'll be surprised. A lot of people pay us like a good chunk of change and they don't know what to say. They're like, all right, what do we say? And I'm like, wait, why'd you want to start a podcast? So that's something we have to help a lot of people with. And so we developed like a scripting guide for that to help them go through that journey. Because if you kind of like develop, like we say too, if you're going to like write out your episode, don't write your episode, like have prompts, questions, and then use those answers, like use them as inspiration to go down a rabbit hole. That's one thing. And then also like, people are usually confused on how to format their show. Like, should I do interviews, solo episodes? Like, what kind of solo episodes? So we usually help people create different formats and varieties of content, like Q&A episodes or like Wednesdays with whatever, or like different themed episodes to keep it interesting. You don't want to just do interview. People are going to get burned out. So you want to like mix it up.
Oh, that totally makes sense. Now, I want to kind of bridge the gap for the listeners today, or obviously the digital geniuses that are here. When you have your podcast, how do you connect it to all the other social channels? What is the thing that you do? Because we teach, one of the things we specialize in is social media paid advertising. How could you use paid advertising or plug in podcasting?
Yeah, to be honest, paid advertising, we're just experimenting with that with the partner. We already do it for launches. Paid advertising works good for launches because we usually do like a giveaway campaign, so it's easy to get opt-ins and people to rate, review, subscribe because it's part of the giveaway. They get more points. But yeah, we just started experimenting with. So I can't give you too much on the paid ad front. I will say though that if you have current offers that you're sending people that you retarget to, like whether it's courses, coaches, whatever on Facebook, using the podcast content as like a filter for like, hey, if they watch like a minute of this podcast content, then you can throw them into your bucket of your paid ad, because then they're obviously interested in what you're saying. So RSS feed, I think is what or how do you connect them to the social platforms?
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, like, in theory, how would you say, here's a Facebook post or ad or whatever? Are you promoting the podcast? Are you driving traffic that way? Are you taking people from a podcast into a Facebook, or like where you typically do that? How do
cross promotions everywhere, especially like on YouTube. You want to tell people to join the group, let's subscribe. So we cross promote everywhere, and you would just kind of build a template. Like what works good for podcast descriptions after you kind of do your typical thing, the key takeaways and all that, is just having like your where people can follow you. Instagram, Facebook, and if you have any cool like no-brainer offers for people to opt in, because people aren't really free things work the best. Because people don't listen to podcasts with their credit card out. Like, all right, you know what I mean. So it has to be opt-in stuff. So.
Got it. So you just would like on the end of the podcast have them, hey, if you're interested to learn more, go to this site, and is that kind of the best way to do it, or is like during?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what you have. Like, it's obviously a dynamic question. And you can even do it. It doesn't even have to be, like, in the outro. It could be, like, throughout an episode, too, if it's, like, feels organic to mention it. Just plug things, And, yeah, asking for ratings and reviews is good, too. Something that we do now, and it works very well, like, it's working really well for Christy Code Red, is we do, like, a Q&A episode, and we'll shout people out. We'll answer any question they have. But they have to leave it in a rating and review. So you get a ratings and don't let people ask you questions anywhere else. So you get the rating and review, and then you shout them out with their Instagram or something. So
yeah, I think that's super powerful. Let's go over to Chris. Chris, what are the questions? You got some questions in the chat roll there?
Yeah, well, that last point is that's a nice little hack. Like you're talking about, hey, what's the platform in which we communicate and connect with our listeners? In the review section, baby. Yeah. I'll pay attention to that.
Another one that we see work very well for coaches and consultants is there's an app called Textiful. It's a software, and you can create like almost like a follow-up campaign through text message. So you tell people, hey, like if you want to chat with me or if you want specific help on whatever, and usually at the end of the episode, because if someone listens to your episode for 15, 20 minutes and they obviously like you, so if you don't give them a call to action, like it's not smart. You want to give people the chance to ascend if they want specific help. So usually it's like a 5-digit number. Just text help or whatever keyword you want to 33322, and you can get their phone number. And some people like calls are valuable, especially coaches and consultants. Like we see it work well for fitness. They just get people on the phone. They're like, man, you need a meal plan for 3 months. Let me offer it, and then they just sell on the phone. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, with the CTA I'm taking notes as you're talking, writing that one down. Someone asked, hey, what's that app called again?
Textiful. I can spell it out. Text, IFUL.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for doing that. All right, yeah, so some podcasting questions. Earlier, you're talking about the interview format, like burning out. I was like, how's John Lee Dumas doing?
I mean, he has early movers advantage, so he's cruising. Yep,
he has momentum, so he's still good. Okay, so let's get into some tech a little bit. Like I know I came out one time and just said, hey, everyone, the attempt was to remove any restriction, meaning it's free, it won't take you money, it won't take you time. Anchor. You can do it on your desktop. You can do it on your phone. You can Android, Apple. Like it just kind of covers. But if for those that have done that and taken action and started building, what would you recommend? Listen, the pod and bean family, sprout bean and pod bean, whatever, all those.
All the plant
different
podcasts.
Yeah.
There's blueberry.
Exactly. They're organic, not GMO.
Yeah.
So
I don't typically recommend Anchor for several reasons. Only because like it's not a long-term solution.
Right.
First of all, like they create your iTunes account for you, so you don't ever get analytics to your iTunes. Like they own it. That's why it's free. And your iTunes has a lot of good analytics. Like it'll tell you when people drop off on episodes. It'll tell you specific countries and devices they're listening at. Like there's really good analytics, and I'll pay for that. It's fine. And I know there was some shady stuff before, like they own your content. I think they fixed that. I don't know, but to me, it's not a long-term solution, something like that. So
right, and that's kind of what I wanted people to hear, and so we'll go into it a little bit more because where I came at, it was the first time like on Trainer Die Show we brought podcasts to the show, and so this is for people to take action, start thinking of content, getting the wheels turning, and now I'd like them to hear more. Like, all right, if you're going to keep going and do more, this is more the direction you should go.
I think of Anchor for soccer moms. So like they have no intention as like getting big or like really like blowing up their brand or business, and they just want to talk to a small community of people because like it's not going to be a quality show. Like you're recording from your phone, you can only do so much. They try to add cool features which help a little bit, but like you can't. No offense to soccer moms. Soccer mom podcast on Anchor.
Hey, like you could do great minivan reviews. Like that'd be a good podcast.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to like get comfortable podcasting and don't want to make a big deal of it in the beginning, you just want to get comfortable, then start an Anchor one for your close friends, whatever. So yeah.
Yeah. So for the ones that want to move on, like where do they go? Where should we go? Should they go to Listen?
Simplecast. That's what's in the guide. Only because I've used Libsyn before, some of you guys may have heard it. I think I've told one of you guys this. Like they haven't changed like their UI, and like it looks like you're using the internet from the '90s. Like it looks like you're gonna get hacked. So we use Simplecast. They do constant improvements. They have some patents pending. We actually just spoke with their team for like fingerprint technology. So it's pretty cool. Like you can see some cool stuff. So yeah, that's what we use, and it's $15 unlimited storage. Libsyn is like a paid plan for storage, like. And it's hard to calculate sometimes, so.
Yeah, and that's the simplecast.com, right?
Yeah. That's what we use.
That's awesome. Hey, Mary asked a question. She says, what's the best performing episode length?
So typical episode length, usually the average length is like 20 to 22 minutes, because that's usually a commute ride that someone takes. But it depends on your audience and what they like. What do they do? Your avatar, like if it's like a corporate person, they might be listening on their drive to work or in the gym or something. So it really depends on your audience, and you can poll for that. Ask them. You can once you release, ask them like, hey, how long of episodes do you want? Just be careful of making it too long because it'll actually like scare people. Like they'll be like, this is a 50-minute episode. I'm not going to start this. Like, I'm not going to finish it. You know. So, in that case, you can break things up into 2 parts, or multiple parts. So,
that makes sense. Let's go over to Will and Paige. I think they got another question.
So that was going to be one about the length, but we're just testing, right? We're just trying to try different lengths to see kind of what feedback we get. But the other one is, and you touched on it a little bit, is how often to do it. And you just kind of mentioned like what you can manage. But, ideally, should you be going for like once a week or twice a week? I mean, what's kind of the perfect?
Minimum once a week. Some people do like 2 a month, but like I have minimum once a week, I think. Because then you could do like a weekly scheduled show. Like you could tell people, hey, every Monday, every Tuesday, like we're going to, anything more or less than that. More is obviously better, but yeah.
And that was going to be kind of the second part and it's probably dependent on the audience again as well, but is there a better day during the week to release your podcast? Like maybe on Monday night or Saturday morning as opposed to like a Monday or?
We see weekdays work better. And then from there, man, it's just like there's so many factors like age, location, demographic. You can look at your competitors and see when they post, and try not to post at the same time. For like cold audience, that's really the only factor. So,
what are some strategies that you use to research competitors, or like sites, or where do you go?
everything, dude. Like anywhere they would post content. We usually search by keyword. Like we search on Instagram, Pinterest, Google. Google's obviously a big one. YouTube.
Yeah.
Obviously iTunes. And listennotes.com is a great podcast search engine where you can search by keywords, and then on the podcast it'll have all their social links, so they kind of aggregate that data.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, listennotes.com. That's a pretty good one. So yeah, that's what we use. And then when we're listening for research, we're listening for like how do they start their episode, how long are they, what are the variety of shows, how are they doing their show notes, how are they specifically promoting. Like we'll subscribe to their list. We'll figure out like how many episodes are they sending a week, like what are their strategies.
Yeah. And let's go into show notes for a second, because I know some people like transcribe and post the whole thing in there. Some people won't put as much, make a keyword. What's your take? What's your approach?
Yeah, transcriptions you definitely want to put at the end, because those are pretty long. You don't want to have your call to actions at the end of a transcription.
Yeah.
Those usually are for blog posts, because then they're really good for search engines. We honestly too, like you can use automated transcriptions. Like a lot of people use Rev, but like Temi.com is like 10 cents a minute. There's even a better one. It's called Otter.io, I believe, or
like UTTER.
OTTER. It's like 0.001 cents a minute. It's crazy. You get like 6,000 minutes for $9 a month. There's a free version, which is a lot too. I don't even pay. And you can throw your episodes into there. Obviously, it's automated, but yeah. So show notes, yeah, you just want to. It depends on your style, and like, it's different for everyone. But usually, just like 1 or 2 paragraphs about the episode. What is the hook? And then some details about what people should like to expect in the episode, kind of like pre-framing them on why they should listen. Like you should just tease them to listen. Shouldn't give away everything. Is our like opinion, because people don't go to podcasts to read; they go to listen. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
And then you want to have key, like obviously it's more work to do key takeaways. It's not as important if you have someone doing it for you. Cool. It's not required, to be honest. Like just a hook and a description of the episode is enough. But if you want to go above and beyond, you can do that, and then have your typical links and stuff. So.
Can you talk a little bit about SEO strategy when it comes to podcasting? Yeah.
So the transcripts one. There's some plugins on WordPress that help a lot. The typical, I think Yoast is one of them. Google actually is really good for SEO. But no, sorry, did I say Google? Obviously. YouTube is really good. For if you can like hit certain keywords, like YouTube videos will pop up first. Definitely for names too. YouTube ranks pretty well. Like we see people ranking well on names. Like if you interview some big name and they're like up and coming or something, if someone searches them, like your show will pop up. So, yeah.
That totally makes sense for sure. I think that's Cassie says, what's the best content on the very first episode, to introduce yourself or to go right into content for your avatar?
We do like a sideways webinar. You're familiar with this, Sean?
I'm familiar with it, but maybe you want to explain it just to everybody listening. Yeah.
Yeah. So typically the first thing we record is a trailer episode. So a lot of these podcast RSS feeds, there's a specific episode like tagging you can do called trailer. So whenever someone goes to your podcast, it's the first episode they see all the time. And we just like to just a raw episode, 2 to 5 minutes, like why you made this podcast, who is it for, why they should listen. Nothing specific, just broad. Really telling people like your whole purpose behind it and why they should join you. And then after that, you want to do your origin story, obviously, which is just Epiphany Bridge script. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Expert Secrets, go read it. Should I drop my affiliate link? No. And after that, you want to go into the biggest false beliefs for your launch episodes. vehicle, internal and external, and then have an episode for where you talk about a specific call to action. So yeah.
So one episode, like the trailer episode, is just like the highlight reel. It's like the trailer you'd see for a movie.
Yeah, just like welcome to the show. Like this is who we are. Just like brief, like 2 to 5. Yeah, just like a movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
and then
it doesn't give away everything.
Yeah, and then the next episode is like straight up your backstory, and then the next and then the next episode is going to be about basically the vehicle of whatever you're getting into, whether it be podcasting or social media or whatever. And then the internal fear that you're basically overcoming, and the external fear, and then a call to action in different episodes, right?
Yeah, and the call to action episode could be like one we did recently, that the yoga podcast that got top 5. It was like they did a case study for someone who they helped launch her yoga studio. She made a lot of money, and they interviewed her. So it was the call to action was like, hey, if you want the rest of this interview, you got to join our new Facebook group, and then put it in your email, and we'll send you the rest of this interview. So something where if they it teases them about some sort of thing you created, some sort of freebie, some sort of like free course offer, and you go over it in the episode, but if they want it, they have to join your Facebook group or go into your email list. So yeah.
No, that totally makes sense. Chris, you got another question? I see you messing with your headset over there. Can you hear us?
I think it's frozen.
Oh, that's an awesome.
That's the best frozen position.
Best. Somebody take a picture. Will and Paige look like they got another question though.
Yeah, I have a question. So lots of times when you listen to podcasts, you hear people have like intro music or music at the end. How important are some of those added features, or are they important?
All they serve as is pattern interrupts, and they just make it for catchy, like it's easier to remember. For intros, we've actually been finding lately that short and sweet is way better, like 15, 20 seconds, because if it's more than that, people will actually skip it. They're like, after the first or second time, like if you make it short enough where they can't skip it, then you're good. Because then they're like, whatever, I'll just listen to it. Yeah, so it's just pretty much kind of like highlighting what the big catchphrase or tagline of the podcast is, and telling people what the show is, who you are, etc.
Is there a perfect?
It's funny you say that, because I'm that person. If it's too long an intro, I'm like, no, skip. So our intros are like 10, 15 seconds, and then like a little bit of music, 10-second thing saying like this is what our podcast is about, and then just a little bit more music into the content, and that's it.
Yeah, and I've heard some podcasts, like I think Mixergy, Andrew Warner, I think he does a live reading like every episode of his intro. Like there's no music, it's just him talking. So Alex Sharpton's another guy. His intro is no music, it's just talking, but he has a sexy voice. Like, I'm Alex Sharpton. Yeah, so if you could do that voice, like definitely do that.
I'm still working on the sexy voice thing. Getting there.
Well, Daxie has a training, sexy voice training. He can just.
I feel like that should be a new offer, man.
It should be. I just created. You didn't have to tell me you don't have it yet. Just tell me you'll fill it.
Boom. Yeah.
What's funny?
Outros. The outros could be longer. Like outros could be as long as you want. Like you can do 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you can ask a lot of cool stuff in outros. Like I have one where I ask people if they want to interview me. Like I'm like, hey, like if you want to get to know me better and you want me to provide value to your audience, if you want to interview me, go to interviewdaxie.com. The link actually works, guys. And then I put my Facebook group an outro. You can test a lot more outros, and you want to. You don't want one, because people always listen to it. So.
Let me just ask about that concept, because I think that's really important for a lot of people. Like, hey, I don't want to make my own podcast, but I want to use podcasting in my marketing. I guess they call it guesting, right? So,
yeah.
So can you talk about, like, if you just wanted to do some guesting on podcasts, what would be your advice to the newest person kind of climbing into that market?
Yeah, so you obviously got to do some research. Listen notes is a good one. Figure out obviously start small. Because if you've never been interviewed, it takes a while for you to kind of like get comfortable sharing your story and like figure out what are the best elements, like what feels the best. But you want to figure out like from the podcast point of view, because people are always looking for an interesting guest. If you can have a good hook to something you did that's like makes someone like, whoa, that's an interesting hook. people are more willing to get you on. So figure out what is your hook that you can provide to someone, and then it's much easier to like pitch yourself. We have a certain format. I think we talked about it in the guide too, how we pitch to what we call it growing by OPP, meaning other people's platforms.
Yeah.
So how to reach out to like A, B, C level people. So yeah.
And you said that's all in the guide. That's a pretty valuable document.
Down with OPP. Yeah.
You have to be down with OPP. All right, so guesting is and like what would you say is like kind of the biggest downfall when somebody tries to do guesting, or what stops them from it?
What like doesn't lead to success?
Yeah.
Either not reaching out to the right people or just speaking to because you guys probably know this, like everyone's starting a podcast now, so which is cool if you want to practice, but like not getting on the right like make sure they have ratings and reviews and like they've made episodes, because a lot of people will say like, hey, you want to get my podcast, and they don't have a podcast and they'll never start a podcast, and they'll kind of like get you that way. So just make sure they're legit if they ask you, but if you're asking people, then I'm sure it's fine. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Will and Paige, do you have another one? I have a bunch more. No?
And also, like, if you're...
I got so many going to my head, I just can't collect them, but...
Yeah, when you create like a one-sheet that you can give to people, create like a one-sheet. So it's pretty much, it has your headshot, it has your links, it has questions they can ask you, and it has, like, a suggested introduction. Like, if you make the job easier for them, then they'll most likely say... it's easier for them to say yes, and they'll position you better. So...
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, so one more thing about guesting, I'm just going to ask about, like, what's the etiquette around shout outs, call outs, that kind of stuff at the end of, like, as you've been guesting on podcasts?
Usually either the host will set you up for it, or you can ask ahead of time. Like, say, like, hey, is it cool if I promote something at the end, or if I give something away? Honestly, like, they want you to have something to give away, to be honest. Most podcasts do, so, like, because if you're providing value to an audience, like, they're totally down.
Absolutely. Well, you've already given a tremendous amount, and I know you have something else that we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Will and Paige, Will, did you have another one?
Yeah, I got one more.
Yeah.
So, expectations for, like, growing your podcast. I mean, I've heard a few different things. Maybe you can just clarify, like, is there a point where your podcast will kind of start to take off after so many downloads or things like that? Or what kind of growth can you expect kind of when your podcast is first starting out?
Don't look at the numbers when you're first starting out, especially if you don't have such a big audience. Just focus on making the right kind of content and getting, like I said before, engagement. So it'll honestly require because people are driven to podcast. People don't just search like if people are searching on iTunes, they're searching broad terms. Like they're searching sales or real estate or digital nomad. So just know that you will have to kind of like play some algorithms and master platforms. So figure out the one platform you want to master, whether it's Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube. Just figure it out, and then that's how you'll grow. You'll grow on platforms, and that will lead to the podcast.
Totally makes sense. That's awesome. All right, so now I want to get a little personal with you as we're kind of coming to the end here. Got about 8 minutes left. On a scale of 1 to 10, Daxie, how weird are you?
Damn, dude.
Let's go behind
I don't
that
know how
curtain.
that scale works, dude. Like, what is a 10? Like,
A 10 might be like Howard Stern, and a 1 might be like Mother Teresa. I don't know.
oh shoot. I would say like a 7.
So you're like a John Travolta. Like he's cool, but he's still like a little, he'll surprise you every once in a while.
No, I'm just a Chuck Norris. I'm always the same.
Chuck Norris is a 13, my friend.
Yeah. That's
On
amazing.
everything. Weird, power.
I would only say like a 7 just because like I'm kind of introverted and I don't like to talk to most people at my co-working space, only because like they talk too much. That would distract you at co-working spaces, man.
That's amazing. Next one. What would you say you're not very good at?
A lot, dude. What am I worst at? Fuck, I don't know, man. I would say like anything that has to do with like operational stuff, like because I have a partner, and that's the only reason I have an agency, because I have a partner, first of all. If I didn't have a partner, I would not do it, because I know what I suck at. But I'm not good at the day-to-day things. I'm always like, I like to open new loops, and like I'm a visionary. I like to start new things. Like I like new. So if things get monotonous, I tend to not do them.
Got it.
So that's, I guess, what I suck at.
Yeah. A couple more here. Tell me something that's true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
Oh, dude, man. I wish you gave me these. That's true that nobody agrees on. Okay, I got an idea. So most people think that music makes you dumb. Like, I don't know if you heard that, where they say, like, if you listen to music, it, like, lowers your I think the opposite. Because I was reading some study how your brain is, like, 80% water. And I don't know if you've seen those videos of, like, what sound waves does to, like, sand and water. Like, it actually harmonizes. There's a book on it. It talks about if you freeze, like, crystals, or, like, they showed, like, water crystals, like, if a monk was praying to it versus, like, if it was in a bad situation, and, like, the organization of it. And if your brain's 80% water, like, if you have the right vibrations going in, it structures your neurons, you know? So...
Okay, so now I got to ask a follow-up question, because that's amazing. How do you...
Just probably up to 10 on weird.
Yeah, that's so good, dude. How do you put the right brainwaves going in?
Man, I would say a lot of it, dude, number one is affirmations, dude. Like, the way you talk to yourself, affirmations is everything, man. Like, having a positive outlook and being of an abundant mindset, like, you know, talking negative, whatever you say in your head is going to affect you, even if you think no one hears it. Like, if you talk negatively about someone or have a negative thought, that's why I try, whenever I feel a negative thought, I'm like, what caused it? How do I get that out of my life? Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, a couple more. I got 3 more questions for you. Next one is room, desk, or car. Which one do you clean first?
It's a good question.
What is this, dude? Definitely not car, because I still need to clean that. I would say a room.
All right, Will and Paige, room, desk, or car? Which do you clean first? Write in the chat roll. Which one did you guys clean first? Room, desk, or car? I'm really interested to know this.
Definitely my desk. I can't even function if it's
I don't
cluttered.
have a desk, so I guess that doesn't.
I have a little bit of desk that has like 2 keyboards and 2 mouses on it and a bunch of stuff, and it drives me crazy. I can't focus if it's not clean. So desk, definitely.
Desk. Will.
I would say car. I know you probably noticed even on like trainer dance, I'm a fiddler. Like I like pop pen lids, whatever. So if I got something next to me in my car, it's got to be gone. Otherwise,
I have a lot of cars, man. I thought you guys were digital nomads. I didn't know you guys own cars. I thought you guys live on planes.
Chris, room, desk, or car?
Desk, for sure, because I spend the most time there. And I don't know, Sean, how about you?
I would choose my car. I'm with Will, man. Me and him are so alike. It's crazy, but yeah. So I just like to have a clean car all the time, if I can. But I sometimes suck at that. So, all right, that was a great question. What are in the chat roll? It's like somebody saying, "I need this book." Yes, room, car, room, car. Not too many desks. All right, Daxi. You mentioned something at the beginning. I know you have a course, and I just wanted to ask, like, how can people follow you? How can people search out and seek and connect with you? Like, what's the fashion that you like here?
Yeah, I mean, you guys can connect with me on anywhere, Facebook, Instagram. My DMs are open. I always read and respond to them. I'm not at that level yet. And yeah, dude. So we just relaunched our podcast launch challenge. It's 21 days. It's literally like a week ago. It's the same process we use in our agency to launch a client. It's only $97. Like I've sold this for $1,000. Like we sold 10 people, but I wanted to make it like right now, just like whatever, just put it out there so people come in and get results. It's actually $197 if you go to the site. We're gonna raise it soon. It's over like 60 videos, like step by step, micro. Literally what we do. It goes by week 1, week 2, week 3. We show how to find and automate guests, like how to do that process, our production boards, how we create our checklist through Trello, and automate the whole thing. All of the softwares we use, integrations, our launch strategy, our social posting strategy, like literally everything. I still don't know why it's so cheap, but that's what it's at right now. It's only because someone told me recently, like, if it's not your main focus, just put it out there. And that's not our main focus. Our main focus is the agency that we're doing. So maybe one day I'll make it more expensive. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, guys. If you want to get into that game plan and follow the boss of bosses when it comes to podcasts, it's down there. Go ahead, take the 21-day challenge. What's the expectation at the end of the 21-day challenge? What are they going to have?
Launched
podcast.
Yeah, because we had a course, dude. It had a lot of the same information. It was called 7-Ticker Downloads, but we didn't people felt it was an information overload. So we just wanted to have a direct path. Like, hey, this is all to just launch. So yeah.
That's awesome. And my last question before we take this episode home: what's the impact that you want to make on the world?
Yeah, man. I just want people to feel better about themselves, like have self-awareness, and that's not tangible at all. But yeah, I feel like I could do that through music for sure, because that's what changed my life. That's why I really want to kind of disrupt the industry there, and especially because it's going to get interesting in the next 10, 20 years, like music, the whole experience aspect of it with VR and AR and so I'm pretty excited for that. So
that's really awesome, guys. Check out Daxi Perez. He is the man. Check him out. I am Daxi at Instagram. Definitely DM him, hit him up. That would be super awesome. Let's go to Will. What was your biggest takeaway tonight, and what are you guys going to implement in your business?
Oh man, I don't know, a lot. Staring at your 21 launch challenge here right now as well. So, biggest thing is.
I think all of the knowledge that you gave us, and you've given us some, the Textable app and the listennotes.com, things that I wasn't even aware of. So some really cool stuff to go check out and just learn more and grow more. So for me, just all of your knowledge, just thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, you kind of mentioned it with, for us, we started our podcast because we're kind of finding our voice a little bit still, and we're just kind of putting stuff out there. And to hear you say, get on there and just talk and, find your audience, just do it, kind of gave me a bit of comfort too. So just reassurance that we're doing the right thing and just, getting out there and just doing it, because a lot of things I feel it's just doing it that matters. A lot of people have these ideas to do something but never actually implement them. So for us to implement this has been really good, and then for you to hear just to say, go do it, find your voice and you'll figure it out. So
yeah. And a lot of it too, Sean, I'm sure you're aware from Steven, the biggest thing too is when you could find your red ocean and then, have a blue ocean for them to go to. So what is the big market you're talking to, and how do you pull them to your current way of doing things or view on the world, and become a thought leader.
Yeah, super powerful. Let's go over to Chris. What was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I think so. The thing that you're saying, Will, about hey, where to start, how to take action and go is the big first step of getting started is market research. It's the overlooked thing. It's the unsexy thing, but ironically, it's also the most valuable thing. And you gave some great resources of ways to start doing the research. And you told us how we should feel when we're doing it, which is as the more and more you do it, you're going to learn about your competitors. You're going to learn about how you feel about the space. You're going to learn what stories hit for you and where you're getting excited, what you can add to the conversation. And it's a conversation that you can see yourself doing at least for 2 or more years. And the peace that brings, now it's game on, and you'll naturally feel that build. So I think a lot of people listening are like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Here's how you get out of your head is you start doing this market research, and as you are moving and doing that, it'll become a lot more clear. So that was a really big takeaway overall is the market research part. I wanted to ask you, Otter something, the transcribing one, Otter, what was it called?
History right now. Otter.ai.
.ai. That was really fast. Nice. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, that one's good. Yeah, and so I actually had one of the biggest mistakes I had was because I didn't, the foundational stuff I told you guys, first understand you, then the market, then your avatar, then your messaging. I had a really good podcast about 2 years ago. It was in the health space. because health was one of my first passions. Like, I was really into Chinese medicine and like superfoods and stuff. And I had some knowledge in that. And I grew it pretty big to like 2,000 plus subscribers, and it was only like 15 episodes, all through Instagram, like leveraging hashtags and getting shout outs and stuff. But I never wanted to make a solution for that space. So it was pointless. Like, I didn't want to be a health coach. I didn't want to sell health products. I didn't want to sell a health course. I was just doing it because it was a passion. But like, you have to think too, like something can be a passion, but if you have no solution for people, you won't like get enriched by it. And people won't get the results they deserve, So I started a health podcast, and I had nothing to offer people. So then I ended up stopping it because I was like, what's the point of this? Like, so yeah.
I think that's
really
really
good.
that's a really, really powerful. Sorry, Chris, did I cut you off there?
Not at all. I was just saying that's a really good point on the problem thing.
Yeah. If you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, either you're planning to or you currently have a solution to the problems you're talking about. If you don't, then you're not gonna. If you don't have like a value ladder attached or some way people can ascend, you're not gonna get enriched by the show. And some people that's different. Some people that could lead to like speaking or it's not just traditional path all the time. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that was amazing. Guys, if you have any other last questions for Daxie, write in the chat right now. We're going to go to the poll results. It was Daxie versus Chris's beard. Let's see
I voted for the beard.
All right. Well, the beard got a few votes there. I don't know, Chris. You're working on it, man. You need some soul glow or something in there. But Daxie is our new champion, the digital golden belt champ for this week. Congratulations. Thank you for coming out, dude. And as we always do at the end of every show, guys, don't forget there's a VIP session with Daxie that's going to be starting in the next 5 minutes. You guys have your links. You want to jump on that. But Daxie, if you could, please share just some last big one thing, a takeaway for the newest person coming into the podcast world. What would you share? What would you share with them?
Oh man, kind of feel like I covered a lot of it, but yeah, I'll be honest. Be real with like what your goals and intentions are, because podcasting is great, but it's also a timing thing. Are you willing to make the commitment? If you're not willing to make the commitment, don't start just yet. Kind of understand, like, project, like, am I willing to commit 6 months to a year at this rate? If not, you might want to hold it off for a second, because it's not good to start and stop. So
that's it. Consistency and persistency is the key, guys. Don't miss the VIP after party if you're VIP. And also, guys, we have an awesome show coming up next week. We're actually going to be in Alaska, which is going to be epic. So thank you guys so much for attending. And Daxie, again, man, it was such a thrill to have you out on our show tonight. And we're really looking forward to your VIP after party. We'll see you guys next week, same time, same channel. Bye-bye.